Dales, Irretepantes. Hi everyone. How y'all doing today? I know that it's weird that I'll be streaming in English, as I don't normally do, but I figured just for the ease of understanding, and making sure nothing gets misunderstood or misconstrued by, spur of the moment Latin speaking, I thought I'd take a moment here with some nice smooth jazz playing in the background, right, to talk about our courses for the coming term. So, firstly, we are mega excited. We have some new people that we've added to the team, right, which you can see under here on our website under the team heading, I guess is the word I'm looking for, right? And our courses are live. They run starting the week of June 27th, and they run through mid-August with a week break in the middle for most of the courses. Some instructors had different needs with respect to their schedules, but all the details are available under each course. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go to the course, right? We're going to do a deep dive and see what's being offered this next coming term. So let's head on over. So as you can see here, right, we have our top heading here that talks about, the selection of courses we're offering. We have courses offered in spoken Latin, right, spoken ancient Greek, and courses that are run in English about Latin, about Greek, or about things relevant to the classics. All the courses that we run, for the most part, presume some sort of prior knowledge in the given language, except for, either Latin or ancient Greek, except for the ones where it's learning Latin or ancient Greek from the beginning, which unfortunately for this term, we are not offering due to scheduling difficulties. But let's go bit by bit. And, actually what we'll do is we'll go from right to left. We'll start with the English tab, then the Latin tab, then the ancient Greek tab, and just go through course by course real quick and see what we've got going on. So under the English tab, we have 3 courses that are being offered strictly in English, right, about topics related to the classics or the ancient world. And let's start with number 1 here, right? A practical guide to classical rhetoric, which is being offered by the wonderful Louise Marie Muller, who lives in South Africa. You can learn more about here by clicking the link. She's going to be talking a little bit about classical rhetoric and how the art of persuasion came to be, how it's utilized in the ancient world, especially by the great orators such as Cicero, Demosthenes, and Pericles, considered some of the best speakers of the ancient world. So a major part of this class is the integration of rhetoric, right, into daily life, practical application of these ancient principles to everyday life, which I think is a pretty important and pretty awesome thing. So going back, that's course number 1 in English. And then we head over here to, this is something we're very, very excited about. Not that we're not excited about the previous course, we're excited about all the courses. But this is something particularly new to us, and that is an introduction to DEI for classics teachers being offered by Jen Jarnigan. Jen Jarnigan gave a wonderful presentation on this at the CANE meeting, the Classical Association of New England, about systems thinking and its application in DEI work. And what does DEI stand for, right? This is a term that you might have heard before but don't know the exact meaning of. So it's diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? It's really important that everyone who comes to the classics feels represented, feels safe. And so this class is going to be a really wonderful introduction to DEI for classics teachers. I'm going to see if I can actually reduce the volume on this music a little bit, just a little bit, so that we can get a little more of what's going on here, right? So that is course number 2 here in the English. And then number 3 right here, I'm going to be offering this one myself. This is Communicative Language Instruction Theory and Methodology. So this is the version of the course that was previously offered last summer. Last summer, I taught this course for the first time through Locke, though I have done other seminars on Introduction to Second Language Acquisition Theory. So this is sort of an introduction onto how do you teach ancient languages using active methodology, as it's often called. The term active Latin, spoken Latin, right, living Latin, all these terms have been used to refer to what we're trying to do is create and foster communication in the classroom, right? It's important to have your practices be communicative. And how do we do that? And so we're going to be using a book here written by Florencia Henshaw, right? And Maris Hawkins, I apologize, which is just published. Fantastic book. Should be super fun. Okay. So those are our courses in English. Next up, let's shoot over to our Latin courses, right? Ooh, and the music transition is perfectly timed as well. First up on our list, offered by the wonderful Ilse van Rooyen, right? Our co-founder and podcast host and web manager and all-around awesome lady, right? I might be biased, but I think she's pretty great. She's offering Ovid's Metamorphoses, specifically focusing on the story of Apollo and Daphne. And this will be conducted entirely in Latin, right? The story of Apollo and Daphne, I think, encompasses something around like 70 to 80 lines of Latin. She'll be going through, discussing the text in depth, some major themes, possibly some difficult aspects of the text, right? As well as discussing how that fits into Ovid's work as a whole. So, there we go. Ovid's Metamorphoses, right? Apollo and Daphne. Back to the Latin. And shoot over here to Novice Intermediate Latin Speaking, right? Which is also offered by the wonderful Ilse van Rooyen. So, how do you place yourself in these levels, right? What does Novice mean? What does Novice Intermediate mean? What do all these things mean? We try our best to make sure that all of our courses somehow are reflected by Actful, right? We usually use Actful as the scale for fluency, right? So there's novice, intermediate, advanced, superior, and distinguished are the 5 levels that are recognized by Actful, but the 4 principal ones are novice, intermediate, advanced, and superior. But here, what we mean for novice intermediate usually is that you're breaking out of doing simple sentences, right? You're able to describe yourself, but maybe you're bridging into the next level, moving toward intermediate, maybe narrating things that happen not only in the present, but also in the past and in the future, and being able to do so with some mastery. Additionally, right, what novice intermediate especially means for us is that you've already had some foray into spoken Latin. You've already done spoken Latin in some sort of context beforehand, right? Our novice course assumes 0 knowledge of spoken Latin, but does assume some knowledge of Latin, right? Usually a lot of us go through some sort of like grammar syllabus, right? Like, I don't know, 2 years in college or a few years in high school, and then we're thrown in and told to read. But here we mean to engage in some Latin speaking along that way. So that's our, that was a little bit, not only about the novice intermediate course, but about how we do our levelings here. Next up, another wonderful offering coming from Tina Chronopoulos, an amazing professor at Binghamton University, if I'm not mistaken, in New York. And she's offering a course called Fabulae Nubeculatae. What are Fabulae Nubeculatae? Well, literally, that means like clouded stories. It's the idiom that, as far as I've heard, has been used to describe comics, right? Because all the things that are said by people are put in little clouds, right? All their words are put in little clouds, like thought bubbles and word clouds. So Tina is going to be reading a couple of sets of classics in this genre, but don't think Batman, but think more Maxim Moritz and Asterix and Obelix, both of which were written in Latin, right? Asterix and Obelix is originally in French, but Maxim Moritz is written by is originally in German, written by a German comic writer, and she'll be conducting those entirely in Latin. It's meant for novice/intermediate Latin speakers, so you've done a little bit of spoken Latin before, but you want to read some comics and discuss them in Latin. It should be a really good time. It should be noted that this course is offered at 6 1.5 hour sessions, right? 1.5 hour sessions. I don't know why I said 1.5, but 6 1.5 hour sessions over the term, right? Which is why the pricing is a little different, because it's not just 1 hour, but 1.5, which is really important for getting to know each other, right? In the class, is having that time. So it's really good. Okay. Next up in our Latin lineup, Sallust Prefaces, Sallust Praefationes, his Proemia, right? So this course is being offered by another new instructor of ours, Tim Smith, but you might know him as the co-host of Secunda Mensa, or the founder of the YouTube channel Coquamus. So he's going to be reading together with his students, right? The beginnings of each of the surviving histories we have by Sallust. So Sallust wrote the Bellum Jugurthinum, the Jugurthine War, the war with Jugurtha, the Bellum Catilinae, the war with Catiline, right? He also did write a proper history that we don't have, unfortunately. But the Praefationes are very provocative philosophical prefaces, as Tim says here in his description, and talks about the human capacity for greatness, as it says here as well. And so he's going to be reading through those Praefationes with you all and maybe thinking about how those can apply to our life, looking at what Sallust said and so on and so forth. So really awesome course being offered here. I personally am a huge fan of Sallust. I love historiography in general, but Sallust is perhaps one of my favorite historians. I really love that philosophical twist he often has on a lot of his works. Though Sallust himself throughout his life was considered morally bankrupt by a lot of his contemporaries, but that's a long story. And Tim will tell you more about it in his class. So those are our first 4 here. And then next up, this is really cool. This is something that I've never seen before and looks like it could be really fun. Well, I should say I've never seen before in a classroom setting like this, right? Because Tim Smith, again, is instructing doing cooking in Latin. Do you want to learn to cook in Latin? Well, I hope so, because it's super cool, right? So the co-host of Secunda Mensa, Tim Smith, and the channel Quoquamus, and the reason why I said, it's something that I have seen before is because he's done it before, not only on his channel Quoquamus does he go through cooking, but also when he teaches at Salvi, right? Salvi is the Septentrionale Americanum Latinitatis Vivae Institutum, the North American Living Latin Institute, right? When he teaches during the summer, he's often a coquus because of his amazing Latin and cooking capabilities combined into one, right? It's always a happy day when you see Tim hanging out in the kitchen. So here, he wants to engage in some vera commercia, as he says, so like some real interaction in the Latin language. Oh, hello! We have a guest here, Cuthbert AG18. Hello! Lovely for you to join us. I'm so glad you found us through the Latin subreddit. So what we're doing right now is we're just going through some of our summer courses, talking about things we're going to be offering. I'm sorry that this is in English. Normally we chat in Latin on this channel. But we're just talking about some of the things we're offering so far. And we just landed on cooking in Latin, which is really, really fun. All right. Next up under our Latin sphere. So we're going to go from, we went over Ovid's Metamorphoses, Novice Intermediate Latin speaking, Fabulae Nubeculatae, Sallust Prefaces, cooking in Latin 2, the Naufragium, from the Colloquia of Erasmus, right? Erasmus Roterodamus, right? He was born in Amsterdam, if I'm not mistaken. No, yeah, Amsterdam. Yeah, Amsterdam, I'm pretty sure. No, Rotterdam. That's why he's Roterodamus. Okay. I totally knew that. It's not because I'm extemporaneously speaking. Anyhoozles. Erasmus, right, is famously one of the best non-native Latin speakers and writers possibly in history, right? Writing some amazing colloquies, right? Colloquia in Latin, right? And this one is a particular treat, his Naufragium, right? A naufragium, right, meaning a shipwreck, right? So there's a big old shipwreck, and he does a poetic description of this shipwreck, and it's super fun. I see, we have Stoic Gaming X. Hello. Do you also have ancient Greek courses, resources as well? We do. We are going to be doing some ancient Greek courses, and we're on our way to talking about those just now. Currently, we're just running through all the Latin courses. We ran through the English courses already. And then we're going to be talking about the ancient Greek courses we're offering. A really great question. Thank you so much, Stoic Gaming X. Bene. Okay. Or Kalos, perhaps. Alrighty. So, the Naufragium Colloquia of Erasmus, and that's with our wonderful instructor, Jamie Banks, who's just an amazing Latin speaker, amazing human being, and we're so happy to have them as a part of our team. Next up, back to the Latin. We're going to finish up through here. The selected psalms as music and poetry. This is something about which I know very little, again, offered by our inimitable Jamie Banks. I think I used that word correctly. I hope so. My Latin's better than my English, folks. Jamie Banks is going to be offering this course, treating the majestic book of Psalms and looking specifically at their poetic, literary qualities and musical settings. And what's amazing is Jamie Banks has a background not only in some of these theological discussions and stuff like that, but specifically in choral music, poetry, and the Bible as literature, right? So this background will lend itself really well to having some amazing conversations and discussions inside this course. And I'm jealous that I can't make it, unfortunately, to be a part of this course. I think about that for all of our courses, of course. Of course. See what I did there? Okay, so moving right along. That's our course offered by Jamie Banks. Next up, Latin word order in Cicero, a practical exploration of theory, right? you might have learned at some time in your career, right? It might have been told to you that Latin word order doesn't matter. It might have been told to you that Latin word order is super flexible, but doesn't really do much, right? But this class is going to perhaps change your mind on that, right? Latin word order is not per se fixed, but it does convey meaning, right? Word order is an integral part of conveying meaning. It's the first sentence right here. Look at that. Haha. Integral part of conveying meaning. And we as Latinists have known this, but it's important to take a look at it. So what's going to happen here is that Diane Warren Anderson, an amazing professor over at UMass Boston, also one of the instructors at the Communicative Bostoniense this summer. Folks, take a look at that. Take a look at Communicative Bostoniense. It'd be a great time. Is going to be offering this course exploring this book, Latin Word Order, Structure, Meaning, and Information, published by Oxford in 2006, using this book and Cicero's Verines and seeing how this book stacks up against some real examples of Latin texts, right? Which should be a really interesting course. I'm also jealous I can't take this one because of timing, right? But like I said, I feel that way about all of our courses. We have really, really talented instructors. We're very grateful to them. Are there courses on medieval and Renaissance revival Latin too? There are, absolutely. So I was just saying before, we have Erasmus's Naufragium right here. So there's a Renaissance humanist, right, writing for us as well. Additionally, we have a medieval course currently in the pipeline, in the works, that should be released hopefully this Friday or a little bit later than that, and more to come on that specific thing. We do try to make sure that we offer Latin from many different eras, not just the classical period or the golden age Latin as it's often called, because all Latin is Latin and super fun to read. Great question, Stoic Gaming. Thank you for asking. Alrighty. Next up, we have Terence's Adelphoi. So this is a text that a class that I'll be offering. I think Terence is super, super cool, super fun, right? He relies less on the physical slapstick humor of Plautus and gets a little bit deeper, I think, with his writing. And here we're going to be looking at that wonderful comedy, the Adelphoi, about what is a better way to raise a child. Is it to be super harsh and strict parent, or is it better to be free and let them do whatever they want, as it were, right? So here in the Adelphoi, Terence explores that theme, and we won't be able to read the whole work because we only have 6 weeks, but we will indeed be doing selections and reading small summaries written in Latin between to make sure we catch up with the gaps in the course, right? So Terence's Adelphoi, Terentius Afer, a wonderful Roman author. Well, a Roman freedman author. Okay, where are we at here? Sorry, I lost my Latin. There we go. Okay, back to the Latin. So that was Terence's Adelphoi. Next up, there's another course I'll be offering, the Passio, Perpetuae et Felicitatis. Not specifically medieval Latin, but Latin of the late antique period, as it's often called, or it's the 3rd century CE. Perpetuae and Felicity are Christian martyrs, and we have their account chronicled by someone called the Redactor, right? And it chronicles the experience those women faced as Christian martyrs. So we don't have a lot of literature written specifically in the ancient world by women, but this is one of them. And a really wonderful window into the perspectives of the people of that era, about the Christians at that time who were oppressed, right, and martyred, right, because of or executed because of their faith. And also getting to see what it means to be that and a woman in the 3rd century CE. A really wonderful work and super, super fun. All right, even though it sounds pretty harsh and heavy, but I promise you it's a fun text to read. Next up, back to the Latin. That's my bad. Where are we at now? So we just finished up Hyginus, his Fabulae. I think Gaius Julius Hyginus is one of the most underrated authors. One of the most underrated authors, honestly, of the Golden Era, because he was a freedman of Augustus, right? And I bet that most people probably haven't heard of him, but he was a freedman of Augustus who was a super prolific author. He wrote a lot. We don't have all of his works, unfortunately, that come to us. One of them is called the Astronomia, right, which is a work on astronomy, but we're not reading that course. We're reading his Fabulae, which are essentially brevia. They're shortened summaries of classical mythological stories. And so what we have in their extant state are much smaller. They seem more like sort of school exercises that were done, which is here's a small summary of this myth, here's a small summary of this myth. And they're really, really comprehensible. They're really enjoyable. And we're going to be reading some of his Fabulae, and probably in the last 3 courses, his summary of the Odyssey in Latin, which is a really, really fun work, Gaius Julius Hyginus. He also gives us a window into what Latinitas of a freedman Latinist would be, right? Which is, not for nothing, pretty dang cool. So, that's Gaius Julius Hyginus and his Fabulae. Back to the Latin, we're going to finish up down here. So we have a few more Latin, as you can see. We are Latinitas Animicals, and Latin tends to be our focus, but we do love Greek as well, and we're working on offering even more. Next up, we have Flavius Caper de Orthographia. There's another course I'll be offering. So Flavius Caper, also not really well heard of, is a grammarian of the 2nd century CE, and he wrote a work called De Orthographia, right? And this is not like the English word orthography, which is used usually to refer to someone's handwriting or way of writing something, but rather the true Greek orthos, correct or rightly, and graphia, right, writing. So it's the art of writing correctly. And what is this? This is a prescriptive linguistics manual of the 2nd century CE, where he's basically like, this is how you should be writing Latin, not like this, right? People are saying this, but that's not how you say it. You have to say it like this. And why would that be important? Well, it's kind of fun to read because it sounds like a grumpy English teacher who's saying, well, everyone's putting prepositions at the end of their sentences and this is ridiculous, right? So you can read it for the comedy aspect there. But additionally, this must give us a window onto what mistakes people were making daily and what daily Latin must have looked like, right? Because why would Flavius Caper be writing about these mistakes if they weren't happening somewhere, right? So really kind of interesting. Just so everyone knows, Ilsa's off to the side here working on her work, but she's also eavesdropping and made a little air quotes over mistakes, because what is a mistake in language anyway, especially by native speakers? But neither here nor there. That's a larger conversation that maybe we can have in that course itself near the end, right? What does it mean to make a mistake in a language? Okay, next up. Okay, so another course that I will be offering, Nepos' Life of Atticus, right? Cornelius Nepos, you might know, because he's the person that Catullus dedicated his Lepidum Libellum to, that was Arida Pumice Expolitum, right? And so Cornelius Nepos is a historian and biographer of the 1st century BCE. He also wrote some poetry, none of which that we really have. But he wrote his work De Viris Illustribus, about excellent men, and some of his more famous works include the Life of Hannibal, the Life of Alcibiades, the Life of Cimon, but I decided that I wanted to read the Life of Atticus, because Atticus is someone who's often just like footnoted to Cicero, right? It's like, here's Cicero, oh, and his friend Atticus, right? But Atticus was like a big-time celebrity at that time, and he was really well-respected, really well-revered for not only his intelligence, but also his generosity. His name, Atticus, is not his actual name. It's just a nickname that the Athenians gave to him because he was so cool. He's like, that's the Attic guy, right? The Athenians loved him. And so Nepos writes a detailed account of his life, which I'm a huge fan of biography. I really enjoy it. So, looking forward to that one. Back to the Latin. Okay. Next up, we're going to shoot over to Novice Latin speaking. So I already talked a little bit before. This is also by the wonderful Ilsa Van Royen, who is standing offset to my left. By standing, I mean sitting. What was that?
So he has to say that.
What was that?
So he has to say that.
She said, so he has to say that. Sorry. Apologies for that. But anyway, so novice Latin speaking is intended really for those who have had zero interaction with speaking Latin before, or maybe like a tiny little bit, but not much, right? This course will be, as much as we can, the safest and most fun introduction to Latin speaking that is out there. I should mention that in all of our speaking courses, Latin and Ancient Greek, we don't directly correct you. For a number of reasons, but largely the biggest one is that it's just not supported in research as being effective, right? And a lot of people think, but if I make mistakes, and if I keep making the mistakes, like, I want someone to tell me, and that can be useful at a later stage, but in general, what often happens is actually that even though you correct someone, they'll make the same mistake 10, 15, 20 minutes later, a few weeks later, or so on and so forth. It just means they need more exposed input to what's standard, I should say, rather than the word correct, lest the air quotes come back, right, for language correctness. But novice Latin speaking is a great introduction to speaking Latin itself. Okay, We're going along, folks. We're going along, folks. Next up, Cicero's letters to Atticus. We have an Atticus-themed term, right? This is myself, Andrew Morehouse, offering this course, or Andreas. And I really do enjoy Cicero. Honestly, he's my favorite author. You heard it here first. I know most people, when I tell them that Cicero's my favorite author, they think something very specific about me. But I just really love his style, his excellence in writing. And I like reading especially his letters and seeing what his actual daily mind was thinking about, and with his friend Atticus. And there's a question coming in. Do any of these courses, should one expect to have... Oh, okay, I see it done a year or two of Wheelock or Hanson and Quinn. Yes, exactly. So a lot of our courses are geared toward people who have already sort of like learned Latin on paper or grammatically, right? Like people who are taught like, oh, recite all your charts and you know Latin, right? So a lot of them have the expectation that you've done a little bit of that, but not specifically. You don't have to do Wheelock or Hanson and Quinn specifically. We've had people who have come into our Latin speaking courses who have done, say, like, I don't know, read the majority of Lingua Latina per se illustrata, right? They've read like 20 or 30 chapters of that, and they're like, okay, I want to try my Latin speaking hand at things, right? And we're very supportive and welcoming of anyone who wants to come in and learn to speak Latin. We just make sure that the novice Latin speaking section specifically does mean you've had some exposure to Latin on paper beforehand. Okay, so we have this may I bet it's not a dumb question, but it's prefaced with, this may be a dumb question, but I'm self-teaching as an adult. That's really cool. Congrats. That's a hard thing to do. It takes a lot of discipline. That's awesome. I never took Latin in high school or college. I'm going through Lingua Latina per se illustrata familia romana. How many years of high school or college Latin does familia romana generally equate to? That's actually a wonderful question. Not stupid at all. Or the word we used was dumb, but neither one. So in general, if you read through the entirety of Lingua Latina per se illustrata, I would make that the equivalent of 2 years of college Latin study, introductory college Latin study. It gets you through the quote-unquote grammar syllabus. And then for high school, it would probably be like, I don't know, 3 years-ish, right? More or less. So if you've read all of Familia Romana and feel pretty comfortable, especially with the beginning half or the beginning 3/4 of the book, then I think you'd be prime and ready to take the novice Latin speaking class with no doubt. Right? That'd be fantastic. And Ilsa's putting 2 thumbs up and making cheering arms over in the side over here. So that's a really great question. A really great question. Absolutely. Does that answer your question sufficiently? So I'll make sure. Oh, of course. Our pleasure. Or perhaps a libentissime, right? Super welcome, super welcome. Okay, so where were we? We're novice Latin speaking, Cicero's letters to Atticus, super fun. Advanced Latin speaking. So advanced Latin speaking is like the other Latin speaking classes, just at a higher level, right? In general, the way we run the classes doesn't change a ton. It just, the level of discourse changes, right? So that's more or less what the advanced Latin speaking is. And intermediate, the same, right? So level of discourse is different. I'm going to really quickly just say that when we talk about levels, I said this before, but I'm going to use the metaphor that was taught to me that I found very clear as to looking at linguistic fluency, and that is what's called Tarzan at the party, right? Tarzan at the party. So there's 4 levels of linguistic fluency as recognized by ACTFL. There's novice, intermediate, advanced, and superior. And this 5th little hidden distinguished, but we'll leave that one out of the way for now. Hold on. What is ACTFL? I'm so glad you asked, Ilsa. That's the American Center for the Teaching of Foreign Languages. A really great question. ACTFL is the American Center for Teaching of Foreign Languages. There's 4 levels of fluency, Tarzan at the party. So at the bottom level, if you're novice, that's Tarzan, like interacting at the party. It goes like up to a person, go, oh, you good. You drink good drink. I drink good drink. What that? Ilsa, smart. Andrew, also smart. We like Locke, right? That would be Tarzan interacting at the novice level at the party, right? And then when you move up to sort of the novice to intermediate switch, Tarzan is able to mingle at the party and ask people how they're doing. Maybe start to bridge into what are you going to do next week, right? Or like, what did you do last week? Start to bridge into that section, but not quite be able to just be like, hey, how's it going? What's new? How's the weather? did you watch game yesterday, right? And you notice there'll be some linguistic errors happening there, and that's normal, right? And then at the advanced level, Tarzan can sort of like, come in and narrate what's going to happen at the party next week and what happened at the party last week with higher levels of accuracy, right? Being like, oh my God, did you see that guy at the party? Oh my God, he was swinging from the chandelier. No idea what he was doing. Absolutely crazy, right? And then next week, I hope he comes again because I think that we're going to have a pool party and I just want to see what he does there. It's going to be crazy. So that would be an example of maybe a more like advanced level thing. And then superior can answer the question, should parties be illegal? So really what that means is you're getting into more abstract concepts, right? In Latin, that means the use of the subjunctive, right? And if you listen to actually some grammarians, the optative, Donatus, for instance, who wrote the Ars Minor, says that Latin contains an optative that's contained in the word utinam, right? That's the only optative, but which just means I wish or would that. But anyway, neither here nor there. So those are our 4 levels that we're talking about. Advanced Latin speaking and an intermediate Latin speaking. Advanced means basically advanced or higher, right? And then intermediate means you fall around into here, moving up to this level. So just want to make that clear. Next, Cicero's 4th Catilinarian, right? So we have offered over the past 2 terms 2 courses, right? Cicero's 2nd Catilinarian and Cicero's 3rd Catilinarian, and now we're on to Cicero's 4th Catilinarian. And why? Why all these Catilinarians? I myself, Andreas, am a huge fan of the Catilinarians. This course will also be taught by myself, and I think they're just super interesting, really big intrigue, right? You get to see sort of how Cicero builds this auctoritas for himself, and I just find them really fascinating. And in this specific speech, what's going on? Well, what Cicero's trying to do is he's trying to subtly persuade others that perhaps some of the conspirators should be put to execution, for which later he will be exiled, right? So we get to see that precedent happen. All right, we're almost at the end of the Latin, folks. Next up, Phaedrus's Fabulae, Book 4. So we're in Book 4 because in the previous terms we offered Books 1, 2, and 3. But you don't have to have read Books 1, 2, and 3 to enjoy Book 4 because Phaedrus, a first century Roman fabulist, right, and he was fabulous, right, first century CE, I should say. He wrote translations of Aesop's Fables and Roman fables into Latin using scenarii, the same meter that Plautus and Terence wrote in. So you can expect a lot of the stuff you expect in Aesop's Fables, right? You see animals acting as humans, anthropomorphic interaction. You see a sort of a moral of the story at the end, like, and this story shows that we don't walk in the streets at night, or whatever it might be. I don't know. I don't think that's any one of his morals, but super, super fun text, really like well-contained stories, so you can finish an entire fable or 2 in a class session, and we're going to go through as much of Book 4 as we can. And this is meant for anyone who's never spoken Latin before or higher, right? You can feel free, even at the higher levels, to take these classes. Alrighty, and then the last Latin course. Oh no, that's not true. I skipped a couple. Okay, the possibly penultimate, not sure because I can't count. I teach Latin, I don't do math. So, is Latine Ludamus. Latine Ludamus. So, we're going to play games in Latin. That's all we're going to do in this course. We're going to hang out, we're going to play some games, and not video games, but rather interactive games, right, that we can play together, like Go Fish, right? And I know that sounds pretty lame when you first hear it, playing Go Fish in Latin. But I trust me when I say it. Some of the most fun I've had in Latin is playing Go Fish, not only in person, but also even online. And you can see how that happens here. We play a number of other games, too, that are conversational and interactive. It's just a boatload of fun. And for you, I believe it's Stoic Gaming was, you were the one who asked for Ancient Greek courses. We also are doing a version of this in Ancient Greek called Paizdomen Hellenisti, right, which just means Graece Ludamus, right? So we'll be offering that as well, which is super, super fun. Alrighty, I really do enjoy that course because you just get to let loose and play some games. Alright, so what's the one I missed? I missed Praelectio Cum Andrea, right? So what's a Praelectio? A Praelectio is sort of like the reading that you do that explains everything. It's laying it all bare and flat, making it all clear in Latin. And often it's used for sort of like a explicative lecture, not an expletive lecture, because that'd be something very different, but an explicative lecture, a Praelectio. And so what do? In this course, as many participants as they want can come in, because we are going to be reading, but it's going to be really instructor heavy. I'll do most of the heavy lifting. I'll just go through a reading like I would go through a reading. And then if there are questions or if people want to interact with the text, they can. But there's no onus to do so. You can just sit back, relax, read along, listen, whatever you'd like to do inside this class. Or if you just want to come in and be like, I need to get my reading habit up. And that's why this is priced at a little smaller price point, is because most of it is just going to be me reading a text. But maybe you want to interact too, all welcome, right? And I won't know the text that we're reading until the week we're reading the text. I'm not going to prep anything beforehand specifically, right? I'm going to see like, oh, this is something I've been dying to read. Let's read it, right? And let's see what happens, right? And we'll negotiate meaning together. So it's a real like meaningful communicative experience. So that's the Praelectio course. Alrighty. That's all the Latin courses that we're offering. So we have some wonderful instructors joining us. We have Tim Smith, right? We have Ilsa Van Rooyen. We have Tina Chronopoulos. We have Diane Warren Anderson, right? We have some really awesome people here who are going to be doing some Latin courses with us, right? Now, that's our Latin. Let me go back. Oh, 1 second. I need to go back to our courses. There it is. And then in our English, like I said before, we have Louise Marie Muller offering her practical guide to classical rhetoric. We have Jen Jarnigan with her introduction to DEI, and then here myself with SLA theory. So what we're going to do now, though, is we're going to take a look at our ancient Greek courses. Yay, ancient Greek. We do love ancient Greek at Locke. And we want to offer some courses so that it also has representation, right? So we're offering 7 ancient Greek courses. Wow, bye-bye, right? Okay. So first up is going to be Paul's Eloquence, Rhetoric and Philemon, right? It's intermediate/advanced Greek reading. So this course is going to be offered as a translation course. It's an ancient Greek translation course. So there'll be probably a little bit of Greek speaking, but not that's not the focus of the course. The focus of the course is going to be reading and analyzing the use of rhetoric in the Christian New Testament letter of Philemon, right? And it's going to be looking specifically at the eloquence of Paul and the use of his rhetoric, reading some of his other epistles, the Galatians, the Ephesians, the Colossians, right? It's going to be offered by our wonderful Louise Marie Muller, right, from South Africa. Who just is a really fantastic, previously student of ours, but now colleague of ours, who has some really interesting things to say, especially in the realm of rhetoric. Okay, next up is going to be Pides Domen Hellenisti. So, same thing as the Latine Ludamus. We're going to play games. We're going to do it in ancient Greek instead. We're going to hang out. We're going to play some games. It's going to give you some really meaningful communicative interaction with the language without being too stressful, right? We're there to have fun. That's the goal. Although in all of these courses, a large goal is to have fun, right? Because if you're not, what are you doing? So, back to our ancient Greek courses. Novice Greek speaking. So, this is the same thing as the novice Latin speaking mentioned before, but for ancient Greek, and it's going to be offered by Claire Meir. You might know her because from internet fame as the translator of the Pokemon theme song into ancient Greek, or because of her frogs, right, that she also did an ancient Greek video on, or as a co-host with Ilsa and myself on our podcast by the same name, Latinitas Animi Causa, which can be found on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Winky face. So here, our novice Greek speaking is being offered by Claire Meir. She speaks Greek wonderfully, far better than myself, right, and has a lot to bring to the table with communicative language practice. So we're very excited for that course. Next up is Novice Intermediate Greek Speaking, offered by myself. So if you've done a little bit of Greek already, want to dive in a little further, that's the class to do it in, and we'll have a lot of fun. So after that, let's head on down to 3 more courses. So 2 of these will be offered by me, 1 of these by the wonderful Ilsa Van Rooyen, standing to my left. And by standing, I mean sitting. So here we have the Tractatus De Mulieribus. Now, a Latin title, a Greek work. What's going on here? This is a really, really cool work that actually Ilsa stumbled upon recently, showed to me, and I was like, oh my god, I need to read all of this and teach it because it's super cool. So what this is, we're not sure of the author nor necessarily the date. I think the current Current going date estimate is the 2nd century BCE, if I'm not mistaken. Right? 1st century BCE. Elsa put up her 1. She knows more about the actual thing than I do for that stuff, because she did a little bit of research into it. And we think the author might have been a female Greek author, but more about it in the course itself. So what it is actually is really just descriptions of famous Greek women, right? And actually there's an alternate title, the Tractatus De Mulieribus, I think like Bellatoribus or something like that. I can't remember the exact name, but it's about women who are famous in war, though not all of them were famous in war, right? And not all of them were Greek either, as Ilsa just mentioned. For instance, Dido is taught about in here. And Dido is not Greek, but Carthaginian, right? Originally Phoenician and Carthaginian, so on and so forth. So it's really, really interesting to see how these descriptions are laid out. And a lot of them are kind of formulaic. So you see the same Greek over and over again with a new person in a really interesting context. So that's our Tractatus De Mulieribus, which just means, by the way, a treatment about women. Tractatus is like a treatment or a essay, sort of about whatever the topic is. The Latin word tracto, tractare, which is actually just a frequentative of traho, trahere. Right, there's our Latin for the day. We're good there. All right, next up is Aesop's Fables. We've offered this course already twice before with great success. It's just reading Aesop's Fables in ancient Greek, having some discussion about them, right? Seeing what kind of scrapes and lessons we can learn, some scrapes that animals get into, the lessons we can learn from them, right? And talking about how those lessons apply perhaps to our daily lives or how these lessons could apply in any other way. So really interesting stuff. Do we agree with the lessons all the time? Not always, but that's okay. So that's our Aesop's Fables course. And then our final course here being offered in ancient Greek is Gorgias's Encomium of Helen, right? An encomium, often translated in Latin as a laudatio, right? Or often called in ancient Greek also a panegyric, right? It's a speech of praise, right? We have other examples of this in the ancient world. And who was Gorgias who's writing this thing? Well, he's a pre-Socratic philosopher and rhetorician. And he was born in Sicily in the 5th century BCE, like 480 something. Oh, it's right here, 483. There we go. And we're going to, in this course, I should say, I'm not going to say where, but rather y'all are gonna, because Ilsa right here is going to be teaching the course in a hybrid spoken Greek and English class. You're going to be reading the Encomium of Helen. And yes, the Helen that you're thinking of, the Helen of Troy, a speech of praise about Helen of Troy. And there's a lot of really interesting stuff that he has to say. And he uses, and a lot of it is really his amusement. I think the word he uses is paignion, right? For a rhetorical exercise, right? It's really, really great. Super fun. So those are our courses for summer 2022, right? Our Scholae Aestivae, our Didagmata tu Therus, sorry, not tu Theru, but tu Therus. And we're very, very excited for all the people that are joining us here. As I said, if you go under our team here, you can see who's joining us. Just these really wonderfully, incredibly learned people, really also like incredibly embodying the idea of what it means to be human. Right, so we're very happy that they're joining us here. Are there any questions quickly before we wrap up for today? I know there was a pretty long stream, about 40 minutes long, talking about our courses, but all these courses just look super fun and exciting, and we're super grateful to have these people joining us, and super happy to be offering these out to the world. So, any questions before we wrap up? It would seem not. Okay. Well, if you do have any questions that come up, you can feel free to head over to the contact tab here, right? And you can send us an email at any time. We tend to respond within 24 to 48 hours. We try to do the 24 side, but life does get busy sometimes. We're human too. I see Gildersleaf has joined us. Hello, Gildersleaf. Looks great. Oh, thank you, Gildersleaf. I'm so glad to hear that. Also, lovely name. Really like it. Also enjoy Stoic Gaming. And Cuthbert, I do enjoy your name, though I don't know what it means. So I appreciate that. Anyway, so folks, I'm going to wrap it up here. It's around 10 o'clock my time, and I need to head to bed because I'm teaching the children tomorrow at high school. So thank you all so much for coming. Like I said, we are super, super excited to be offering these courses. This video will be available later on YouTube within the week. And until next time, folks, take good care. Have a great week, and Speak Latin. Speak Greek. Because I promise you, it's fun. Valete. Eroste. Goodbye, folks.